Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Friday, April 4th. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast, stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
That's the shocking part, that within 3 or 4 hours they made that decision.
A decision directly tied to Donald Trump's retaliatory tariffs. Unifor Local 444 President James Stewart says Stellantis told the union that Trump's announcement was the deciding factor to shut down Stellantis in Windsor for at least 2 weeks.
If they lose jobs over this, that's as devastating as a war. When you take away their ability to make a living for their families and have a good quality of life, this is just as devastating as a military attack.
Stellantis has confirmed Windsor Assembly will shut down for the weeks of April 7th and 14th. Production is expected to resume the week of April 21st. Stellantis is also pausing production at its Toluca assembly plant in Mexico for the month of April and temporarily laying off workers in Michigan and Indiana, affecting 900 U.S. employees. In an email statement, Stellantis officials said they continue to assess the effects of the recently announced U.S. tariffs on imported vehicles and will continue to engage with the U.S. administration on these policy changes. Immediate actions we must take include temporarily pausing production at some of our Canadian and Mexican assembly plants, which will have an impact to several of our U.S. powertrain and stamping facilities that support those operations.
Hang in there. You know, I'm happy that all three levels, all three party leaders are talking about supports for workers at a difficult time.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkin says this is a difficult time, but we will get through it.
We're used to difficult times in the past, the peaks and valleys of manufacturing and automotive. We will get through this too. It's just going to be choppy waters while the U.S. administration sorts out their business.
While Stellantis is reviewing its production schedule, there's concern Trump will move forward with tariffs on automotive parts in the next few weeks.
In automotive, especially in these three countries, we're so intertwined. The Americans cannot aim at Ontario and miss Michigan. And there is nothing about Stellantis that's inefficient. This product is segment leading.
Canada's auto sector employs more than 120,000 people, with about 460,000 people working in related industries. Products that are compliant with the Canada-United States-Mexico agreement are exempt for now.
Stellantis says it will reassess the situation over the coming weeks. You know we'll continue to follow this story and bring you the latest developments. Stephanie.
Scotia Premier Tim Houston is breathing a little easier today, but he's not relaxing.
As it stands right now, there's no new bad news, I guess, is the way I would say that.
Tariffs are now in place on some segments of the auto industry. Tires leads the way when it comes to Nova Scotia's exports to the United States, totaling $1.3 billion annually. Michelin plants in the province employ close to 4,000 people. For now, tires are exempt from that 25% levy. Still, the trade war is expected to affect the province.
Of course, we'll work with those who do remain impacted, who are impacted on both an individual basis and also with larger scale programming. It could mean loans for certain sectors, could mean grants.
Last night, New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt also took a cautious approach to Trump's tariff talk. Holt touts Canada's united approach as part of the reason Trump didn't impose reciprocal tariffs on their main trading partner.
So far, it appears that the hard work that's been done by a lot of people to make clear to the U.S. how connected we are and what good trading partners we are is paying off.
Back in Nova Scotia, Tim Houston confirms all the province's measures, from the removal of American booze from liquor store shelves to the cancellation of non-essential contracts, will stay in place.
I remain committed to Team Canada and the people of Nova Scotia. We will be ready no matter how this relationship evolves in the future.
A relationship that maritime premiers have learned could change at any moment. And Todd, PEI Premier Rob Lance released a statement earlier today, and like the other First Ministers, he wants internal trade barriers to be removed, calling for one economy from coast to coast to coast as this tariff war with the United States continues. Todd.
CTV's Jonathan McGinnis leading us off in snowy Westville this evening. Thanks, John.
At a landmark shared by two countries where looking across the river is looking into the United States, and Americans like James Reese could walk across the border into Canada, talk of tariffs comes with hope for resolution.
My personal thing is I respect, the Canadian and the American relationship, and I just hope this is just a negotiating tactic to where everyone can just get friendly again, and guys like me can come up here and get some poutine, which is what I'm about to go do right now.
Many others visiting Canada for the day chose not to talk about trade tensions. Down the road at a truck stop near the border, where a 25% tariff on vehicles shipping to the United States could hurt some drivers' employment, and opinions are clear.
Yeah, Donald Trump. He's creating strife where there never was one. You know what I mean?
The day that auto tariffs go into effect, emotions are raw.
Yeah, it sucks. It's horrible for everybody. It's just horrible. This whole thing is horrible.
Ben Downey says that he would have voted for Trump if he were American.
But then I kind of went, did you go crazy? What happened?
And he says this trade war just doesn't make sense.
At first it was about fentanyl coming over the border, and then that didn't seem to make a lot of sense, and then it became something else, and so now it's about making America great again, and I just don't know.
Frank Franz is heading to Pennsylvania, and he says this trade war is an opportunity for Canada to become more independent.
I think we're waking up to what we should be doing. What Trump is doing is bringing jobs back. I know it's going to probably, in the short run, it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt us.
Just how big that hurt will be is cause for great concern around here. So whether it's tension about a person's livelihood or just tension between neighbors, there is a sense that the relationship between Canada and the United States has changed. Sean Lee Thong, CTV News.
The moment the opening bell sounded at the New York Stock Exchange, the sell-off began.
It's been expected, but when it happens, it really, you kind of feel it with everybody else.
By the close of markets, the Dow had dropped 4%, the Nasdaq tumbled 6%, and the S&P 500 dropped 4.8%. Its worst day since the pandemic crashed world economies in 2020.
Right now is the time to reevaluate your portfolio. I think investors should be meeting with their dedicated investment advisors. Again, looking at where their time horizon is, their risk tolerance.
Companies with manufacturing in countries hit hardest by the tariffs are the most vulnerable.
It's kind of hard to say what the long-term impact will be, but in the short term, I think to maybe take a step back and understand why you're in those stocks, why you have that asset mix that you do, and kind of go back to your risk profile. And if you're really losing sleep over it, then maybe tweak your portfolio back just a little bit to be a bit more conservative than it might be today.
The TSX lost ground today, too, but experts say Canadian stocks might be a safer bet right now.
When you go back to 2008, 2009, the financial markets in this country, yes, they went down, but we had very strong financial institutions in this country that were able to weather the storm.
There's some good quality companies in Canada that pay dividends. If you are worried, then you could add a little bit more Canadian fixed income to the portfolio as well, just to reduce some of that volatility and maybe some of that uneasiness.
The market volatility will almost certainly continue as long as Trump's tariffs are in place.
It's the unpredictability that he kind of wakes up in the morning and decides, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And that's what is a little bit hard to handle. And that's why it's important to be diversified in these times.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
Leach and Barber were also found guilty of counseling mischief. That charge has been stayed, though, the court saying mischief and the counseling of mischief were too similar to be charged twice. Leach and Barber were found not guilty of obstructing police, counseling the obstruction of police, counseling intimidation, and also the blocking of roads, as that charge was also too similar to the guilty charge of mischief. Barber also faces a guilty charge of counseling to disobey court orders in relation to the convoy's honking of horns. Here's Leach's defense lawyer, Lawrence Greenspan.
You're going to be very brief.
So your summation of the day, Lawrence Greenspan.
Better afternoon than morning, that's for sure. Yes. Was it Meatloaf who said 2 out of 3? 5 out of 6 ain't bad. I can't comment on the mischief charge or any of the aspects of the judge's decision while the matter is still pending for sentence. And that's about all I can tell you at this point.
It was a long day in court today. The judge took about 5 hours to deliver this mixed verdict. A date for the sentencing hearing has been set for April 16th. Patricia.
CTV's Dylan Dyson live at the courthouse for us tonight. Thank you.
The former leader of the Reform Party wrote a national opinion piece warning that Canada's unity could be threatened depending on who wins the federal election. Alicia Fieldberg joins us on this one. Alicia, Preston Manning made those comments, so what does he have to say?
Tara, Manning thinks if Mark Carney wins on April 28th, Western provinces may decide to separate. According to Manning, that includes Alberta and Saskatchewan, possibly even parts of BC, Manitoba, and the Territories. In his Globe and Mail opinion piece, he says right now there isn't a Western-focused party like his Reform Party was in the 1980s. So political leaders need to get organized to handle separation talks. He adds Canadians, especially in Atlantic Canada, need to realize the ramifications of their votes. Manning says if the Liberals are elected, Mark Carney could end up in the history books as the last Prime Minister of a united Canada. One political scientist we spoke with says Manning's warning is misplaced.
Where does he get the idea that Saskatchewan and Alberta want to leave anyway? I mean, the polls tell us it's about 10% of the population. On a good day, I have to wonder what Mr. Manning was thinking when he wrote this. And this will not help the chances of the Conservative Party, led by Pierre Poilievre, at the national level.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he does not agree with Manning's claims that voting for the Liberals would lead to the country breaking up. He says he wants to unite the country after nearly a decade under the Liberals and to stand up to the U.S. threat.
Okay, Alicia, thank you.
On Westmore Avenue in NDG, parking spots are hard to come by. And now there's one less, since this sign went up on Lino Montileone's lawn. But by the time he found out about it, he was hit with a $186 fine.
There was no sign the night before.
So he checked his doorbell camera. This video shows STM agents putting up the bus stop sign shortly before 8 a.m. And this video shows a parking agent ticketing his daughter's car 10 minutes later. Montileone says he called the city to explain what happened, but they told him once the ticket's issued, there's nothing they can do.
Now I got to waste my time to go contest the ticket, and if they refuse my contest, I actually got to go to court to spend 4 or 5 hours in a courtroom to actually fight a ticket, which it's completely wrong.
He says the new sign should have been flagged well before it went into effect.
Now one bus has passed by, and I think they should notify it and put up a sign before the official sign saying there will be a new sign.
The STM says the sign was put up because of construction on Sherbrooke Street West. It says residents in the area are not informed of the installation or relocation of a stop, saying there are approximately 10,000 STM bus stops and drivers must be vigilant. According to Thierry Ressam of SOS Ticket, it's unfair.
There's nothing he could have done to prevent this. I mean, you're not going to go and check every 5 minutes if they're not changing signage and to move your car, you know?
He says Montileone should gather all the evidence he has and contest the ticket. Montileone says he will fight, but for now, he's looking for another place to park. Denise Roberts, CTV News.
From snow, ice, and rain to the melt and then the flood. At Riverside Park in Cambridge,
behind those, that's where the river's supposed to be.
People couldn't believe their eyes.
I wasn't even sure what I was seeing at first. I didn't even realize how bad it was until I got up to take a closer look.
On Monday of this week, the park looking like a normal park in spring. But today, that same area completely submerged.
I've never seen it like this before. I don't know how long it's going to take to dry up.
Even for park regulars, this is new.
I've never, ever seen water like this, ever. It's just a phenomenon.
Definitely it's a little higher, I would say, than a lot of times that we've seen it. Pretty much every spring we get a little bit of flooding through the park. This year seems a little higher.
The Grand River Conservation Authority issued a flood warning for Kitchener, Cambridge, Ayr, New Hamburg, Grand Valley, Waldemar, Drayton, and Conestoga. And also a flood zone 2 warning for West Montrose, meaning additional areas of that community can expect flooding. Many in the region woke up to an early warning about the floods on their phones.
An important message from Alert Waterloo region. The Grand River Conservation Authority has issued a flood warning for the city of Kitchener.
The subscription-based alert that sends out a warning on behalf of municipalities is built for occasions like this.
So they'll monitor all of these events closely, including what's going on with GRCA, and deliver those messages locally right to residents that need them the most.
The region says it's a useful tool to get specific local information to residents.
They can get information directly from the local municipalities and emergency management with detail that's important and near and dear to them.
So far, no injuries or issues have been reported.
The ducks are enjoying paddling through everything.
Just people and animals enjoying a spectacle of nature. Now, the Grand River Conservation Authority was unavailable for comment today, but messaging that they've sent out on their website says they were anticipating the banks in many areas to flood over around midday today. So certainly those flood warnings still in effect for all those communities listed earlier. And as much as people like coming out, taking a look and watching the flooding, looking at the flooding, still want to be very careful around these waterways, particularly if you have kids or pets around this area. It still is quite a dangerous situation. Tony.
Yeah, those images tell quite a story there. Okay, CTV's Jeff Pickle live with us at a flooded Riverside Park in Cambridge. Appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you.
Edmonton police have charged 3 people in connection to a fake job investment scam. Evan Kenny joins us live in studio with more on the story. Evan, how is this scam orchestrated?
Jeff, police say scammers contacted people over social media, telling them about a job they could do from home. The scammers said by investing in a company and completing tasks, the job seekers could earn a commission. The company wasn't real, neither was the work. Scammers said the job involved processing orders for Amazon through the platform ShareGain. It worked like a pyramid scheme where victims were encouraged to recruit other people to generate more investments and see higher returns. Police say people would receive money early in the process, making the company seem legitimate, and the money they received was actually a payment from the different victim, not a return on their investment.
The scams themselves are extremely complex. They manipulate everything, and everything down to all the graphics to convince the actual victim that what they're doing is legitimate.
EPS says more than $84,000 was lost to the scam, with at least 35 people impacted in Edmonton. Across the country, police believe more than $1.2 million was taken. EPS says the scam was organized by a Chinese crime group operating out of BC. They say data collected links the group to human trafficking. 3 people in Edmonton have been charged with fraud over $5,000. Jeff?
Evan, thank you.
Want to purchase a license, we're going to click on that.
Every year, Lee Nolden issues about 3,000 provincial fishing licenses from his tackle shop in Selkirk, but he has some concerns with the system currently operated by a company south of the border.
All that money leaves the province, so it seems a little out of place to me. The whole system is a little bit flawed.
Since 2019, the province has paid more than $7 million to a Texas-based firm, Aspira, to manage provincial park passes along with hunting and fishing licenses.
We are ending the previous government's multi-million-dollar contract, the contract they signed with a Texas firm for your park passes.
With its contract set to expire, the government announced it's giving Manitobans free entry to provincial parks this year while it looks for Canadian alternatives. But CTV News has learned the province is still using Aspira to manage its hunting and fishing licenses for the coming season.
The hunting and the fishing licenses, those seasons are about to begin, and they're kind of complicated systems to turn around on a dime.
Innovation and New Technology Minister Mike Mrose says the province is now looking for Manitoban or Canadian companies to take over the contract.
We've got an incredible tech ecosystem here. I'm supremely confident in their capacity to make this happen on a schedule that works for everybody.
Mrose says the province has told Aspira it's looking for alternatives, and when asked if he believes the province will have a local company ready to take over by next season, This is what he told us.
We want to make sure we do this right, that we get the solution that works best long-term for Manitobans, that meets the standards they need at a price point that's appropriate. And if that takes a little bit of time, we're going to take that time. But that is the ultimate goal, absolutely.
Knowlton is looking forward to the change, but he hopes there may be an opportunity to make the whole system more profitable for local vendors.
The province pays us $1 for every license sold, and it cost us more than that to produce that license.
Now, the province tells us the contract with the Spirit for hunting and fishing licenses is set to expire at the end of this season, but they haven't provided us with a specific date yet.
All right, thanks for this, Stanton.
Break the chain and change the name.
Carrying signs and chanting, Indigenous demonstrators and allies demand action.
There's been overwhelming support for untangling Nipissing University from Mike Harris's destructive and colonial legacy.
Following a $2 million donation to the school by the Joyce Family Foundation 2 weeks ago, which Harris was in attendance for, fourth-year Indigenous student Cheyenne Sago approached him over the Ipperwash scandal. She asked him how he plans to reconcile with Indigenous youth after Harris made an alleged racist remark in 1995, a day prior to 38-year-old Dudley George's shooting death at the hands of OPP.
To Dudley George's family, we're still fighting to honor him, and we're still fighting for reconciliation, and this matters.
Sago says Harris responded saying he did want the protesters out of the park and that First Nations people were on Indian land.
That's the way I took it. It was confirmed to me. He said, "Excuse me," and he put his hands on me with the pamphlet, and he's like, "All right." And I said, "Get your hands off me, don't ever touch me again."
Harris and other witnesses have repeatedly denied that he ever made the expletive statement that Sago is referring to. However, the former commissioner of the Ipperwash Inquiry wrote in his final report that he didn't believe the premier. Demonstrators want an apology and argue the university has not taken any meaningful action to stand by its commitment towards reconciliation, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. They're also calling for the school's Harris Learning Library to be renamed immediately.
Now is not the time to start the conversation. It is time to act.
The school says it is investigating. A third-party audit underway at the university around creating an inclusive campus is being conducted, which will be completed in the summer.
We will have a look at those recommendations and we will bring them forward to the Board of Governors for approval, and then we will be accountable for carrying out those actions.
We got to have Indigenous perspectives. We need to have that inclusion, that diversity.
In a statement tonight from the former premier, Mike Harris writes in part, "The interaction with Miss Sago took me by surprise as she approached me as I was leaving, and I find it unfortunate that she was left with an unfavorable impression. Since the 1990s, significant progress has been made on the path towards reconciliation, and I fully support those efforts towards building a better, more inclusive future for all Indigenous communities."
Break the chain and change the name.
Eric Tashner, CTV News, North Bay.
Another day of frustration for thousands of people across the county.
Cleared out the fridges and freezers. They're sitting by candlelight all night as we watch everybody else get their power on. But we still haven't got anything.
Trees still leaning on homes, power lines remain hanging or grounded. Tonight, about half of Aurelia is still in the dark. The city's warming and evacuation centers open for those who need it.
Down up here, down hydro lines.
Aurelia's fire chief, Chris Ferry, says last night's wild weather and heavy rain didn't help make the job easier for restoration and cleanup.
We received almost around 50 millimeters of rain in only a few hours, which caused quite extensive flooding through the city, which has added to our problems.
It went pretty heavier on the rain. We just got our basement flooded here. I don't know if it was from the ice, but it was probably from the rain.
Today, the president of Hydro One was in Aurelia, meeting with everyone involved in the massive province-wide cleanup.
Most of the province was impacted, and that's why it's part of the reason it's taking so long. It's just such a widespread impact, and so many trees were impacted. We're targeting having majority back by the end of this weekend, and then there'll be a long tail, rural customers, seasonal homes that are going to take a lot longer to get to.
Hydro One says it has identified more than 1,700 broken poles across the province, many still on the ground, some blocking traffic. Some people in Severn Township are not only still without power, but now a boil water advisory is in effect too.
In our West Shore facility, Cumberland Beach, along Highway number 11, the generator went down the other night. The water is not potable. You need to boil water if you're going to drink it.
More of the same mess still in Oromadonte. Again, most residents without power, and it's really anyone's guess as to when it will be restored.